This is the time and place for appeal number 1846 before the Mount Lebanon Zoning Hearing Board. The time is December 1st, 2022. And it is approximately 7 p.m. or just afterwards. We are hearing a matter from property owner, is it Stefan? Stefan Zanev. That's Tzanev. For 219 Mayfair Drive. The committee has been provided with, or the board has been provided with several items of information. The cover sheet, the official advertisements for the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, the notice to property owners in the surrounding area, the application from the applicant, a written justification for variance request from the applicant, a declaration letter from a neighbor, Michael Aiken, A-I-K-E-N, a patio extension plan with a diagram of the proposed area in relationship to the house. There is a survey from Allegheny Land Surveying dated September 13, 2022. And then there are 4 color pictures provided by the municipality, and the appellant also provided several additional color photographs of the subject property. So with that, we will go ahead and swear in those who will be offering testimony. So if you could please stand, and our reporter will swear you in. Just right there. Just hold your hand up.
If anyone is going to give testimony tonight, if you please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that from the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Now that we are sworn in, we will ask Mr. Sharver to present the municipality's case.
For this case, 1846, it was discovered that the owner of 219 Mayfair Drive recently installed a patio extension. They added onto an existing patio to the side of their property, all the way up to the property line. And in doing so, they actually went up to the property and helped to reinforce a neighbor's wall on the adjoining property. And under the zoning ordinance section 202.5.3.1.2.2, it says accessory uses or structures shall have a 5-foot offset. And when you go to the definition of accessory uses, patios are an accessory use. So therefore, the patio should have been 10 or 5 feet from the side property line, whereas it is right up to the property line. So they applied for a permit, and basically I cannot grant them a permit based on the fact that it's in violation of the zoning ordinance. So the applicant chose to submit for a variance request, hence the reason for the hearing tonight.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ruther, do you have questions for?
I do not at this time.
Mr. Scollin, do you have questions?
No, not at this time.
I have a question, and that is, when we talk about accessory structures, we're obviously talking about the patio. The construction work that was done to actually shore up the retaining wall is not an accessory structure, so it does not have the same limitations.
No, because the neighbor's existing wall was there, and as you can see it on the survey, you can see next to the patio where it sort of looks like it goes across the property line. That's actually it's actually a curb, and you can see that in the photographs that were provided. It's like raised above the patio. And I was told that that was done to sort of reinforce a weakening foundation of that wall along that property line. So at first I advised them that the neighbor would have to apply for a variance as well, but it's not a patio. It's more or less a curb or a reinforced foundation for that existing wall.
And so they would not have needed a variance for the reinforced.
That's correct.
Front. Very good, thank you. And then related, is that curb, does it receive strength from the patio that's under it? Does the patio help reinforce the ability of the curb to hold up the retaining wall?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I looked at it that close. I don't know if there's an expansion joint there, or is it all one pour?
It's all one piece.
Okay.
With the metal structure.
Did my questions raise questions from either of you before we continue?
No, no.
Right, thank you. All right, it is now your opportunity to come forward, present your case and why you think the variance should be granted.
All right. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. As we stated, I'm the owner of the property at 219 Mayfair Drive. With me, I have Mr. Mike Aiken, who's my neighbor on the upper side of the property, and also John Rowley, who's neighbor on the other side. The patio extension that we are discussing today, it aligns with the wall that separates our property with property of Mike Aiken. Our property is situated maybe about 10-15 feet under the level of Mike Aiken's property, so practically he's not exactly seeing what's happening on that end. And the patio was built by a contractor, East Beer Construction and Landscaping. And in our initial, we had conversations about this patio maybe about 3 years ago. At that point, we thought that the price was too high, so we postponed the building of the patio. But this year, we decided to contact again the contractor. And although the project was expensive, we decided that if we pay a little extra, it will be done properly and quickly. During the initial conversations, we raised the issue of permits, whether the permit was needed. And the contractor told us that because the patio was under 500 square feet, no permit was needed, but he would double check that. And the project was estimated at $20,000. So we borrowed this money from Dollar Bank and we proceeded with the project. When the project was started, we again talked about permits. We were assured that no permit was needed. The regulation about the 5 feet distance from the property line was not even mentioned in the conversation. So I'm not an expert, I'm not a builder, so I was relying 100% on the contractor to inform us and to handle all the paperwork. So as the project started and they did the excavation for the foundation of the patio, we discovered that the old stone wall between the two properties actually was not secured. The foundation, it was laying directly on the soil. If you can see from the survey, the wall actually makes it goes at an angle and butts with our house. So that short piece of the wall, actually it has stone foundation, but the part of the wall that is between our two properties, this is where we discovered that the foundation was lacking. It was built directly on the soil. So we decided to use the fact that we were extending the patio to that stone wall to raise this additional step that covers the whole the soil that otherwise would erode with time. This is how we came up with this change of plans in the last moment as the excavation was done. The patio is done, to my knowledge, according to like properly built with 4 or 5 inch gravel, compressed gravel, and then 4 or 5 inch concrete that's reinforced with with metal mesh and then attached to the old patio with iron rebars. It follows the grade of the original patio, so it's for the water to run out of it. And so when we finished the project on the same day, actually, Mr. Brian Denkfeld showed up and told us that we were in violation of the regulation. What else can I add? We talked with Mr. Mike Aiken, who's here. He doesn't mind at all the fact that the patio extends to his property. Actually, he's okay with it, especially that it supports the wall. The wall is in his property, actually, even though we benefit from looking at it. It's a very beautiful old stone wall, but it's in his property. When we mentioned the fact that we were in violation of the regulation to Mike Isbir, who's the owner of the Isbir Construction Company, he said that he actually something to the extent of, oh, how did it escape my mind, this 5-foot limitation. So based on his words, he had forgotten about this, but we didn't know until actually we were told that we were in violation of this. So we do 2 violations here. We built without a permit, and then it extends to the end of the property, and we were unaware of these until actually the project was done. As I said, we relied on the contractor to do the due diligence and to advise us on the course of this project. So I recognize that we're in these violations, and probably I shouldn't have trusted the contractor 100%. But again, that's why we hire professionals, because I'm not a contractor. I'm a software person. What do I know about these things? And with this in mind, and considering that Mr. Aiken does not mind the current state of the patio, and that we also borrowed and spent $20,000, I would appreciate if you consider granting a variance for this project, and so that we don't have to demolish it. So that's, and I can answer any questions, of course.
Mr. Scott.
Yes. Under the zoning ordinance, there are certain requirements that have to be met to grant a variance.
Okay.
The first is that there are some unique physical circumstances or conditions to the property,
Mhm.
such as topographical or other physical conditions that create an unnecessary hardship. When I'm looking at the property, I see this stone wall. Does it extend all the way around your property?
On one side, yes, and this the space that is between the 2 buildings, it also curves there and to our house. So this is practically, nobody passes through in that area between the 2 houses, ours and Mr. Aiken's house, because it's elevated, it's high above the backyard.
How high is the wall, is his property above yours at the property line?
The wall is probably like this high, so I would say maybe 5 feet high, roughly. And it's big stones, probably you can see on the pictures, like I'm guessing like over 100-pound stones.
And when I look at the survey, it appears as if the stone wall's partially on your property, then goes onto his property, then comes back onto your property. Is that accurate?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I thought that on the survey it shows as if it's in Mr. Aiken's property, and then there's a kink right at the end, maybe about 5-6 feet, that it goes a little deeper in his property. So the step that we built to reinforce the foundation, it's at the end right before it curves. It practically extends into Mr. Aiken's property, maybe I would say half a foot, like I don't know, 6 inches maybe. there's this about, I mean, probably you can see it on the survey. I mean, survey doesn't show it. On the pictures, definitely you can see it.
When you purchased the house, was that stone wall already there?
Yeah, the very old. The house was built 1952, so I'm guessing that the stone wall was there since that time.
When did you purchase the house?
In 2009, 13 years ago. We've been living in Mount Lebanon for 20 years, but before we were renting, and 13 years ago, we bought this house.
The second requirement is that because of those physical circumstances or conditions, there's no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity with the zoning ordinance. I heard you mention earlier that there was a concern that the foundation of the stone wall was eroding. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
And so this patio and the curb are serving to reinforce that stone wall.
Yes, this was built on, specifically this step was built to reinforce the stone wall.
So there's a fear that if this were removed, that the stone wall would fall.
With time, yes, I think so.
According to the pictures you provided, it appears as if the patio actually extends all the way up to the stone wall and the curb underneath it. Is that accurate?
Correct, yes, it extends to the stone wall, and there's the step that we built, it varies in width because the stone wall is not straight, but it goes maybe from 0.5 foot to 1 foot in width. And it's about maybe 8 inches high. It's practically, if you look at the wall on from the side, there's a whole row of big stones that are missing. We thought that they were there, and actually they're missing. And this is, we practically tapped this strip of dirt with the step that we built additionally.
You mentioned that the patio is designed, it has steel rebars in it to provide additional stability.
Correct, yes, it's attached to the old patio with rebars, and within the patio, it's built with this steel mesh that they put in the concrete.
And that extends all the way up to the stone wall.
Yes, yes,
So would you say that the patio is actually providing support, the entire patio is providing support for
oh,
that stone wall?
definitely, yes, because this step cannot move now. It's part of the patio practically.
The third requirement is that the unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant. As you testified earlier, this wall was in place when you moved in, right?
Correct, yes.
The fourth requirement is that if the variance is authorized, it will not alter the essential character of the neighborhoods. This patio is located in the rear of your
In
property.
the backyard, yes.
Is it visible from the street?
No,
Would you say that it's similar to other patios in the neighborhood?
in the neighborhood, yeah, it's a plain concrete. And we plan eventually to cover it with some paved stones to make it more beautiful, because right now it's plain concrete. It's not even broom brushed or whatever the term is. It's just plain. It exactly as it is the old patio that we extended. It's exactly the same.
You mentioned that your neighbor is okay with this addition.
Yes,
Finally, the last requirement is that the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and the least modification possible of the regulation at issue. So you're seeking today, you're only seeking a variance for the patio that's already been built, correct?
correct. Yes, the project is practically finished, and we're looking for variance so that we don't have to demolish it. That's my understanding.
I don't have any further questions at this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Yes, so the curb, that's kind of holding back the wall,
Yes,
how tall is that approximately?
it's about I would say 8 to 10 inches, something like this, maybe 8. I haven't measured it. Probably it's 8 because there's also the thickness of the slab, so the slab plus the curb should make up for the missing stones, and the stones are about foot or maybe 14 inches high. So
Okay, so from on the face, you're looking on the front side,
about 8 to 10 inches, but total with counting the combination curb and patio 14.
Yeah, 12, 14 inches
Okay.
approximately, yes.
And that curb, is it, to your knowledge, was it kind of an integral to the slab? So it kind of poured at the same time and it's connected. It's not a curb that was placed on after the patio was built?
No, it was on the same day when they laid out the cement for the patio. They just put a board there, like building a step, and they poured also, they did the metal structure everywhere, and then they poured the step and the slab at the same time.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, there's reinforcing steel in that curb?
Yes, yes,
No further questions.
thank you.
So. Do you have an idea about how old the wall is? It's probably around the time the house was built then.
I would guess 70 years old, yes.
When your lot, because I know your street, it's
It's
pretty,
very steep,
it's a
yes.
steep street, right? So, and you can tell in the front yard that there is a significant slope on the front. And I'm looking at the upper left picture. Kind of going from the left to the right, it's sloping downhill somewhat significantly. And your backyard is flat, but would probably have had a slope otherwise, is that? And that's why the walls are there too.
Correct, yes, the slope is for grading, and even with that wall, Mr. Aiken's property still. There's a grade there, steep grade, and then there's the wall, which is about 5 feet, and then our yard is relatively flat.
And on the survey, I see there's a second wall, like on the complete other side, and is that basically the same thing? It's holding back your yard from your neighbor's yard on the other side, is that?
Are you talking about the back of the yard or between our property and our neighbors?
Right, so I'm looking at the survey on the left side of the survey is the wall we're talking about, and I mean the wall on the right here.
Yes, yes, the same thing.
So your slopes,
Yeah, this is like 3 properties that are at very different level.
very good. So I would describe that as going from south to north. There is a decrease in elevation. I don't know exactly what that is, but again, I know that street is very sloped. Right, and when were you aware that the wall itself was deteriorating? Was it before the patio, or like during the installation of the patio?
When we bought the house, it was some of the stones were actually leaning, so I managed to remove some of the stones, did some excavation. At this point, I didn't know that this wall belonged to Mr. Aiken. So some of the stones were rearranged, so they're loose stones. They're very heavy, but there's no mortar or anything. It's very old wall. So my guess is that if the dirt under the wall starts moving, probably the whole wall will start moving. And the danger there is that these are, as I mentioned, very big stones, and they can cause a lot of damage to people and property.
Thank you. So I have no further questions. Mr. Gowan, did you have? Mr. Scowron, did you have questions?
No further questions.
Mr. Butler, do you have further questions?
No further questions.
All right, thank you. We will now invite the two, if there are others, you can take the seat if you'd like, and if there's others who would like to come up to speak, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name's Michael Aiken. I live at 215 Mayfair Drive. It's my property line that is in question with the stone wall. And I have no opposition to what Stefan has done. And he's actually maintained that stone wall. For me to do anything with that wall, I'd have to go onto his property. I was always hoping it wasn't mine, to be honest with you. But the whole question here is what he did is the elevation difference between our two properties. I mean, the stone wall is this high and then it's another maybe 5, 6 feet up to my backyard, the level part of my backyard. So really that whole section of my property, I get no benefit from it. And he's maintained that wall for me, which is great. And when he moved in, there had been a water main break, which I think was part of the problem. The water came down Mayfair Drive, went through my backyard and went over that wall. That was before I moved in. And so anyways, for me, where I stand on my backyard, I look down, I can't see the wall. And if Stefan's wife is sitting on that concrete patio, I probably would only see the top of her head. So it's no problem whatsoever for me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, my name is John Raleigh. I'm the neighbor on the downside of Stefan at 223 Mayfair Drive. And I just came as the support if any questions came up, but I happen to be a geotechnical engineer. So I just thought, it's sort of my realm of professional work. But he did a good job of explaining the situation, the geometry of it. And there's a slope behind the wall that we're talking about that goes up to Mike's yard. So it's not just a 5-foot retaining wall, it's retaining an additional 5 to 8 feet. So there's a lot more earth pressure there than just the 5 feet. So, and the fact that the patio acts as a brace is a legitimate, concern. It's acting as a brace at the base of that wall.
Did you get his last name?
Could you spell that?
Rowley.
Right, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone in the Zoom? All right, any other questions that Mr. Rutherford has?
No further questions for me.
And Mr. Scott?
No further questions.
All right, we'll now go into executive session.
I called her and she answered. That's what she told me, and where she was. I can give it to you.
All right, we are back on the record for appeal 1846. Are we ready to vote on the matter?
Yes,
Yes.
All right, Mr. Scowen, how would you vote?
I vote to approve the variance.
Mr. Ruther, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
And I also vote to approve. So with that, we will prepare the appropriate paperwork and that will come from the inspector's office. And with that, this matter is closed. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So now we will prepare for 1847. So we'll be off the record until we're ready for 1847.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are you ready? You ready?
Yes.
Great. All right, Today is December 1st, 2022. This is the time and place for Appeal 1847 for the Mount Lebanon Zoning Hearing Board for the property at 296 Magnolia Place, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15228. Property owners are Christopher and Barbara Edwards. The appellant is Stephen J. Sobina, Sobina. We have in our possession the cover sheet, the application from the appellant, the official advertisement in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the zoning hearing notice to neighbors, 4 color photographs of the property. We also have, along with the application, we have a survey taken by Converse Surveying, 1901 Sleepy Hollow Road, Library, Pennsylvania 15129. This is dated July 18, 1991. We also have a email from a neighbor regarding the matter and a copy of the zoning hearing board appeal number 1814 for this property, which was approved December 10, 2020. Right. With that, we've already been sworn in the previous appeal number. That was 1846 for the record. And I will ask Mr. Strawber to present the municipality's position.
The municipality's position is that the applicant obtained a newer architect for a similar project to that which was proposed and granted a variance in 2020. However, that this application is different in the fact that the proposed addition is deeper into the rear yard, thereby making it closer to both the right side as well as the left side of the property and or the front yard along Ashley Alley. And in fact, what was granted in the past as requested as 1 foot and granted as 2 foot. They are requesting a 0 setback along Ashley Alley, which would be the front yard. So they're requesting a 0 setback on the front yard, a lesser non-conforming side yard setback on the right side, the east side of the property, which is non-conforming because it's less than 5 feet now. Hence the section in the 903 section of the application is for an expansion of a non-conforming. And you can see with the paperwork that they submitted, they are just very close to the maximum building area allowed. So hence they chose to apply for a variance for the change in the proposal of the addition with the garage attached to it, with a patio above the garage.
And as an R2 district, it appears the maximum coverage area is 40%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Scott, do you have questions for Mr. Sharper?
No, I do not.
Mr. Roth, do you have questions for Mr. Sharper?
Yes, I do. In Ashley Alley, looks like a unimproved alley. Are there any utilities that run through there?
There are sanitary sewers running through there. And I believe there might be a storm sewer as well. But it might be further down. I think mainly at their section, it's only a sanitary.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sharper, Ashley Alley is in the original plan for this
That subdivision.
subdivision.
Correct.
Yes. And it was just never opened.
It's not open to Magnolia. You actually come in from the north. And it comes up and serves the rear yards of the abutting properties along there. So their driveways come off of it. There's a couple detached garages back there. And that's how this property gains access into their existing rear yard. As you can see from the photographs. The photograph on the bottom left of the photographs that I have taken. You can see that where the back end of the truck is on the lower right corner. That's actually like in the alley. And then their driveway comes off the alley onto their property into their garage.
Mr. Strub, are you aware of any plans that the township may have to open Ashley Alley? As a, you're not aware of any plans? Thank you. All right, any additional questions for Mr. Scalron,
No, not this time.
Mr. Rother?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, so now is the opportunity for the appellant to come forward, and please state why you believe the variance should be granted. If you could say your name for the reporter, please.
Steven Sabina. As I said, my name is Steven Sabina. I'm an architect. I'm representing my clients, Chris and Barb Edwards. And they are looking to request a variance for their property. What I have done, I've heard some boards. I've also went through the zoning application for the 5 hardships. And I've written up some key points to address these. So I'd like, if with your permission, I'd like to read through these. And number one, that the unique physical characteristics or conditions, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing. Well, the original house was sited and built in 1938. Okay. The property meet and bounds are not symmetrical, and not rectilinear like the adjacent lots. So it's actually a non-conforming, more of a pie shape. My clients purchased the home in 2004, and I don't know when the zoning ordinance was modified to actually call the property non-conforming. So, and it doesn't really matter at this point because it is non-conforming. But the maximum permitted lot area is 6,000 square feet. Ours is 4,590. And number two, that because of such physical characteristics and condition, there's no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity. Okay. Ashley Alley is not used or improved for vehicular or pedestrian traffic, and therefore is a paper street. It's undeveloped grassy parcel maintained by the Edwards. It also creates 2 front yard setbacks for them, ideally requiring 20 foot from the street line, rendering strict compliance not feasible. Ashley Alley also has 2 utility manholes centered in the right of way. I'm not sure if that's considered an easement, but if it is, that's what we have to live with. That such an unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant. No work has been done to improve the property so far. So they have not created anything that's not codeworthy. The variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Any improvements that we do will match the residential character of the neighborhood. We're not looking to do a tenement building or something like that. The variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and will represent at least modification possible of the regulation in issue. Okay. The Edwards are a growing family with needed for an expansion of the existing home. They have children. The owner is also seeking to improve the property to further enjoy the amenities of Mount Lebanon. Right now, the house is 625 square feet, and we were looking at a new addition of 468 square feet and a garage of 650 square feet. With all those tallied up on our property of 4,590, that gives about 38% coverage. So we're still under the maximum allowable. And if we're asking for your consideration, of 0 lot line, just because of the odd shaped character of the property. Neither of the side yard setbacks are in compliance. And we're not looking to violate anything more than already is existing. And lastly, if it would be permissible to purchase that property, we would consider that. And further down Ashley Avenue, there are parcels, out parcels that have been purchased by the neighbors. So I mean, it is, and that's not even passive. So I mean. Chris, Barb, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure.
Okay, that's what I have to present. I'd like to have Chris come up.
Hi there.
I'm Chris. Your name for the report.
I'm Chris Edwards.
Hmm.
So, the one thing that was really interesting to me when, and I don't know how well you guys can see this or if you even have a copy of it, but I didn't even realize until we looked at it like this. I mean, when we bought the property, it was wintertime, and I know that kind of doesn't matter to anybody, but I had no idea that this wasn't the property. Like, we just pulled up to the house and went, wow, this is an awesome house. And there was snow and everything. I didn't even know that this like what this driveway or the situation was. Like, I thought this whole thing was just a driveway that went up to the house and this thing and live and learn. But when you look at it like this and you see how tiny that our property is compared to literally every property, like there's not one property that is as tiny as the property that we have here on this thing. I think the next smallest one might be this guy over here. And these people back here, we were always wondering, like, how did they planted trees and they have buildings and garages and things that you can't even like get through there, because we tried to walk over to Atlanta before and you couldn't make it from the street behind us, Baywood, over to Atlanta by walking through there, because they've got it all like tied up in their area. And so it just kind of illustrates the misshapenness of the property and kind of what we have to deal with as we look to build. The other thing that I'd like to call out is, you know, when we applied for the variance before.
Can you speak slower, just a little slower?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was grabbing this slide. When we applied for the variance before, we had kind of spent a lot of time on what does the outside of it look like, and the guy drew like a really nice picture, and we were like really excited, and it was cool. And as we started to get into, well, what are we going to actually do with the rest of this space? We couldn't actually figure out how to get from the old part into the new part in like a way that made sense, because the house is so kind of small that the way the bedrooms are upstairs, even if you take the fireplace out, you just end up with kind of like some really small, narrow bedrooms, and you can't actually get to the back of the new part. So as we were kind of going through this exercise, we just said, we're gonna just put some blocks on here, kind of make everything square, because just want it to look nice and all be square. And the reason that we put this thing here on the side that we're asking for, which might not even be something that we use, was that might be a good way if we came out here, rather than having the steps on the inside of the house like they are now, just in the current structure. Because right now, to get upstairs, you go up the steps here, and this is where all the steps are in the house. We could eliminate all that potentially and have this new part that we would build. You'd be able to go up and downstairs from the bottom to the top in this section, and that way you're not actually taking up the room in the house, and this can kind of all stay the same, and you can have the bedroom and stuff back here. So we don't really know what we're doing. We don't have any plans beyond saying these are the boxes that we have. We're just asking if we have these boxes to work with, and you guys would approve it, then we would start to understand what is it that we can actually start to design and build. So I just want to be like totally transparent so that you understand kind of what happened before and kind of why we're here again now. So I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'm Barb Edwards, property owner. You know, we love our house and we have a super prime location. We've got a fourth grader in Washington and we've got a seventh grader at Mellon, and they'll both go to the high school and we're walking distance of all that. So we very much want to stay here. But we're in 1,100 square feet. We need a little more space. When I buy Christmas presents, I have nowhere to hide them. I have nowhere to put them, let alone hide them. We're just wall to wall in there. So, you know, I just wanted to say that we just need a little more space, and that's kind of like Chris said, that's our outside box, and we'll figure out how to fill it in there, and we'll definitely stay, you know, within the look of the neighborhood. You know, they put 2 houses on our street that look like they belong in South Carolina. They just don't, we don't think they fit the neighborhood, but we're certainly we're gonna make it look like it was supposed to be there. I don't know.
And the other thing is, I know, you know, again, when we talk about this, that kind of all being square, I mean, I'm sure it's just my OCD and I like things that are, you know, for this to step back 1 foot to me because of some what I would consider respectfully an arbitrary rule. There's nothing here. There's not even our neighbors' houses are way up here. And there is a very, I mean, it's far away, and I mean, we can make this all, Steve, you said something about fire. It's certain.
1 hour fire rate construction, just to go ahead and.
Yeah, I mean, we would do whatever we had to do, even though there's literally nothing even close to it, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing here. This is all grass that we mow, and people think it's our yard. It's not our yard, but you know, there's really nothing there that that anybody would be opposed to. The second house, there's a driveway up here, but that's even way up off. You know, it goes through the alley and then it comes up here.
Yeah, so they would continue to be able to access theirs by, it would just kind of split up here, and we maintain all of this, even for this area that we have now that's paved through here. It goes up to our thing. I mean, it was paved when we bought the house, but we're the ones who have, like, we had it coated and kept up with everything for our neighbors. So.
Yeah.
That's all I think.
Right, thank you. Mr. Scholar, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. So the purpose, you mentioned your plan was to build the boxes and then figure out what to do with it later.
Just draw the boxes, not actually build them.
Well, so the new addition, the purpose is what, to just expand the living space?
Yes.
And then the third box is a garage at the top there. It's a
Yes.
2-car garage.
It's a 2-car garage, and then there would be a concrete deck above it. So you would expand the living space here, and you'd be able to come out from what will hopefully be like kitchen and sort of like a living area, and go out onto this deck that would be above the garage.
So I understand that the first part of the addition is 2 stories, that's the proposed addition. But the garage addition, is that going to be 1 story with an uncovered deck? Is it a covered deck? Is it 2 stories? How tall is it?
So the garage is, you know, from the ground level up, the concrete deck would be above it, and then the idea would be that we would bring a roof over like 3/4 of it.
I understand that you were granted a variance 2 years ago, I think in December of 2013.
2020.
Forgive me, of 2020. For a similar project, but it was slightly smaller. Specifically, the 2-story addition that is now proposed to be 18 foot by 26 foot was 16 foot by 26 foot, so slightly thinner.
Yep.
And the garage was proposed to be 22 by 25 feet as opposed to 25 by 26. So I guess my first question is, why didn't you build in accordance with that first variance in 2020?
Because when we started to work on the design plans for the inside of the house, we couldn't figure out a way to get from the front of the house to the back of the house on the upper floor without essentially making the rooms useless because of the way that when you come up the steps there and you end up on the landing, you have my daughter's bedroom, which is the size of a large closet. And then you have our master bedroom and my son's bedroom. I think our bedroom is maybe 13 by 13 and my son's bedroom is maybe 12 by 11, something like that. Even if we took out the fireplace that runs down the center, you'd still have to shrink up what aren't very large bedrooms in order to get from the front of the house to the back of the house to get into where the new master bedroom area would be. And we tried a bunch of stuff, we did a bunch of drawings, and we just couldn't. I just don't think the architect had any vision, like I just don't think he could figure it out. And we just went, okay, we need to pause this because we're not getting anywhere and we're getting billed hourly, and let's just take a break and we'll come back to it. And so that's what we did. So that's why when we went and we started to work with Steven, I said, look, even when I had talked to the architect originally, I had talked about doing 18 by 26 and the size of the garage, and the garage was his recommendation, like the architect that we had worked with before. And currently we have a shed that's in our backyard where we've got some dirt bikes and tools and stuff like that. That's all going to go away. So to make sure that we've got enough room for a workbench and dirt bikes in the current garage, like that's the reason why it's a little bit larger.
So for the garage, you just wanted some more space.
Yeah.
Basically, I guess for the other one though, for the 2-story addition, how does that extra 2 feet? How did that make it easier for you why was that necessary, the extra 2 feet?
Yeah, the thought on that was because of the way that we're gonna have, in order to get this to connect to this and to have the steps and to have a landing at the top. Like if you're deducting, you're now gonna have a hallway, you're now gonna have a landing. If you're deducting all of that area into this new usable space, you're losing the usable space, and sometimes 2 feet can make a big difference. So that was our thought. Let's try to get as much as we can to work with, because it's still kind of tough working with the boxes and see what we can do.
When I first looked at these plans, I guess I didn't realize that little part sticking out of the addition was stairs.
Right.
Where are you proposing those stairs to come down? That is, how would you, do the stairs come down towards the front of the property, or do they open up onto Ashley?
No, it is completely internal, and it's not even gonna be this wedge shape like it would be square, like it's not gonna look weird. We didn't know how, we just said, let's go out to the end of it. But essentially imagine this is inside the house and you walked in the front door and you walked through here and you said, I'm gonna go upstairs, and you just went up your steps here to go upstairs or downstairs, but the steps would be here rather than if I carved out steps inside of the house and I lost that area inside of the house.
So that's like a stairwell.
Yes.
Basically. Is there a covered garage in the back of the property now?
The garage now is part of the house, like it's just, that's in the basement essentially, right? There's just a garage door
Oh, forgive me. Okay,
on the rear of the house.
I see that. Okay. I notice in this photo that was part of the packet, your neighbor, if you're facing your house, your neighbor to the right, it appears that they have a garage and a deck or a sunroom on the back of their house.
That's correct.
How far does that extend?
Our neighbor,
I guess if I'm looking at your drawing here
oh, okay,
and,
yep.
right, so compared to their extension on the back of their house, how large is your property? Is what I'm guessing.
Is it okay if I bring this up?
Sure.
Because I can associate with my other neighbor just put on this addition not very long ago. So this was my other neighbor's original house.
This is 2 houses to the right.
This is 2 houses to the right.
290.
Yeah, and theirs goes the whole way back to there with the deck. So in ours, we're saying that the new addition, this is a patio here. This is where my kid's swing set is, in this red area. Essentially, the new addition with the end of the garage terminates right there after where the swing set currently would be. So it's gonna terminate right about there, everything that we're doing. So it will not go as far as their addition, much less their addition with their deck.
So it's not as far as 290's addition, it is a little farther than 292's.
Correct.
I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland.
You said the requirement that the last variance requirement that the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief. And looking back at the prior variance that was granted, there was a condition that a 2-foot setback be maintained, and that 2-foot setback was really off of the the addition part that was impacting that 2-foot, or would drive that 2-foot, is the corner of the garage. So not the living space addition.
Right.
So would you be able to explain why the garage would need to be larger, and you would not be able to kind of, I guess, utilize or kind of maintain that 2-foot setback, and that garage in the prior variance that I'm referencing was a 22-foot by 25-foot 2-car garage, and now we're at 25 by 26.
Yeah, so. When we. And I believe when we were at that hearing, there was a question asked because we hadn't got to the point of. Our initial thought as we went into it was that it was going to be a wooden deck or some sort of deck like that above the garage. And I remember somebody saying that you're going to need to step back because of fire. You can't bring it out to the end unless you plan to put a concrete deck on there. And I went, no, we're not planning to put a concrete deck on. We're just didn't even know what we're going to do. So after we left the hearing and we were talking to the architect, I said, so why wouldn't we just put a concrete deck on there so we could go out to the end? He's like, well, we never talked about that. And I said, well, I'd really like to just keep, I just think it's going to look better if everything's square rather than things like stepping in. I don't want it to look like it's all parceled together. I just want it to look, you buy a house and you want it to look like it was meant to look that way. I want somebody to look at this house, and even though it was built in 1938, I want them to think wow, this house was meant to look the way that it looks. And it's not just things cobbled together that somebody stuck on a part here and a part there. And in my mind, that look and maintaining that aesthetic is those straight lines, and the garage is part of that. And again, I could totally understand if there were something there that was even 30 feet away from where the corner that's going to be. I get it, but there's not anything that's going to be even close to where the corner of that garage ends up.
So would a I guess the 20, would a 22-foot wide garage fit your needs? Would 2 cars fit in a 22-foot wide garage?
Do you know the answer to that? I think 2 cars might, but I don't know if the dirt bikes and all of the racks of tools and everything else that I have would fit in there, and I'm not sure where I would put them. I mean, that's the truth of it. I mean, right now we've got a pretty nice shed there, and that's going. So here's here's the shed that's in the back. Probably, I think it's about the size of like a one-car garage that sits in the back of the property. And that shed is going to go away because we want to make sure that we're just covering, you know, this amount of area, and then we're gonna still have backyard and it's gonna be nice. So everything that I've got in there is gonna need to fit into here. So not only do I need to get 2 cars in here that I'm currently parking along here, but I need to get everything out of there into here as well.
Sorry to interrupt, while the map is close, this property here on Cochrane, this one right here, is this their parking area that they're using the same driveway?
Yeah, so she has a parking area here. And so she uses my driveway and goes up into her parking area here. So again, we're gonna terminate right about here. And we're gonna come out, you know, onto this, and she's gonna be able to go up just like we did. But I maintain all of this. I mean, I'm the one that shovels it. I'm the one that cleans it. I'm the one that mows all of this. And
Right, so in your proposal though, I mean, you would be going obviously further deep in your property, further, you know, kind of up on the map we're looking at. And at some point, like, you know, you're assuming it was granted, the new building would come pretty close to where that line is, and she's driving into her driveway every day. Is that going to not impede her coming in and out?
oh no, because I mean, so this is where she enters. She will still, first of all, she doesn't park out here. She parks, there's her car right there.
Mhm.
She only uses that like if she has like her sister come and stay in that area. But I mean, she would still just drive up and go in here. I'll be driving up and going in here.
Thank you, sorry. I interrupted. Go ahead.
The existing garage in the basement of the, I guess your current home. What would your plans be with that garage? Should you put this addition and additional new garage on?
So we've never parked in the garage. I don't think my truck would even fit, and even Barb's Subaru, probably you couldn't, I don't know that you could open the doors, but right now we currently have some shelving and we've got some storage in the back. My hope is that I could finally have an office that's not in the corner of our living room for all to enjoy. And my office would get.
No further questions at this time.
Yeah, I used to have an office before COVID, and now it's the corner of the living room upstairs.
So I do have a question, just so when this was previously granted for appeal 1814, and there would have been an initial setback of that was proposed of 1 foot, and then it was granted as long as it moved the 2 feet away. So understanding that the 1 foot wasn't acceptable and the 2 feet was going to be the minimum for that, and here you're asking for 0 feet. So like, help me get to if 1 foot wasn't previously acceptable, that 0 feet would be acceptable.
So I think, as I understood it at that time, the reason that it wasn't acceptable was because the deck was not going to be concrete. It was going to be wood. That was what I understood at the time. So my thought, and that's what I said to the architect afterwards, I said, well, why didn't we, if that is the case, and we couldn't come out, because I've always said, I just want to come out square, and I don't want to step things back. Why weren't we prepared for that? And so when I was talking to Stephen this time, I said, I'd really like to just go back. We're kind of starting. I mean, I know there's precedent here, but we're kind of starting over. I'd like to just discuss what the art of the possible is.
And you lived in the property since
2004.
2004. The house was built in 1938.
Yep. With the original toilet.
All right. Mr. Scowen, do you have further question?
I just wanted, I guess I did, I'm sorry, one quick question. We did get an email from your neighbor at 292 Magnolia Place, expressing concerns that this addition would loom over her backyard and would block block part of her property. I just don't know if you've spoken to your neighbor, if she voiced these concerns to you, or if you'd like to respond to those concerns. Catherine Powell, 292 Magnolia Place.
No, she's never said anything. And that matter of fact, when I talked to her about it, because she'll always say like, what are you guys doing there? And I walked her through it and she was like, oh, that sounds like it's going to be wonderful. The thing that surprises me there too, I mean, I can show you on this. So, you know, she's got this area where this is like her parking lot area here. It then steps down probably about 3 feet. This is a retaining wall. And this is all just kind of unused area, like there's like just stuff back here. So, I mean, if we're talking about terminating, first of all, we're terminating before her driveway even ends. And I mean, she's got, you know, this addition on the back. I'm not really sure. I don't know what her concern would be because she's never voiced it.
You spoke with her about this addition previously though, and she did not voice an objection.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about it a bunch of times.
Okay.
So that's surprising.
Okay.
And I think we have a really good relationship with her, so I'm surprised.
For the record, that the property owner, the neighbor, that's on the side opposite of the side seeking the variance, correct?
Correct.
It's both sides that are seeking the variance.
But we're coming off the house on this side. I mean, we're just coming straight off the house.
So for clarification, if you look at the survey, if you look at the existing house, the front right corner is 4.99 feet. The back right corner is 4.96. So it's slightly tilted so that the closer you go back, the closer you get to that right side property. So the part of the variance, the section 903, is to allow that non-conforming setback that should be 5 feet to be less than what it currently is now at 4.96. Because the further you get back, you're going to get closer to that property. At the same time, the property line to the left, which is technically a front yard, because even though Ashley Alley is unimproved with a dedicated street, by definition of the zoning ordinance, because it's used by vehicles and pedestrians, it's considered a street. So being that this lot is on the corner of 2 streets, it's a corner lot, so it has front yards along both street frontages. So you have a side yard variance that you're seeking, a front yard variance of 0, and an expansion of a non-conforming. So that's the 3 parts of the variance.
But so to clarify though, for Ms. Powell's property, the variance on that side of the property is 0.1 feet. It's 4.9 feet setback instead of 5 foot setback.
Yeah, you'd have to do the math to see how close you get. So it's, you're talking an inch or 2.
Right.
It's still 4.9.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, 292 is actually 2 meters.
No, 292 is right next door.
There's no 294.
No. And for clarification with the previous asked question, there is I just looked at our GIS, there is a storm and sanitary that runs down through Ashley Alley. So it's both storm and sanitary.
So, Mr. Trevor, you said that there were 3 variances kind of that would need to be granted.
The 3
5 foot
sections.
to the 4.9, the 5 foot to the 4.9 is one. The front yard on Ashley Alley
Correct.
is one, and what was the third?
The third is the expansion of a non-conforming.
I understand, thank you.
With the 4.9, it's not, would it be, it won't be from the 5 to the 4.9, would it be from the 4.96 to the 4.9?
Well, the 4.96 and the 4.99 are the non-conforming, because it should be a minimum of 5.
Okay,
So it says in the ordinance that you can't go less than what was there as a non-conforming. So they are requesting to go less than what is there. So therefore, they're wanting a variance from the non-conforming section, saying that they're going less than the required 5-foot offset.
Right, so we're going from 4.96 at the back corner currently to 4.9 at the back corner of the new one. I think that was the question that you asked. We start out at 4.99, we're already not there because the way it was built. We go to 4.96 because of the way it was built, and then we end up at 4.9.
okay.
I see.
And just for clarification as well is, even though they're requesting a 0 setback, the question comes as far as building. So in other words, typically a footer projects beyond the outside wall of the house. So this would have to be specifically designed so that the footer would not extend into the Ashley Avenue alley, as well as the building code does not allow any openings at all into the side of the building that are less than 3 feet from a property line. So they couldn't have any openings along that whole wall. No vents, no windows, nothing. And it would have to be fire rated. So it would be a solid wall.
The whole wall of the garage, you mean, or the?
Whole wall, the garage and the addition. So I just wanted to clarify that because of the 3-foot setback minimum. As far as no openings. And the footer projections, so, without knowing exactly. What the footer projection is required based on the design. That could set it in anywhere from 4 inches to a foot. Depending on the soil conditions. So I'm just making that aware of it.
I think I'm confused about the windows. I mean, if we. I'm trying to understand, depending on what would get approved. Are we
So-
saying that
so the building
in
code-
our house?
The statewide building code has fire rating requirements for single family homes. So typically you don't have less than a 5-foot setback. So if you have a 5-foot setback, you can have as many openings as you want, as long as the proper wall bracing was required or provided. But once you go less than 5 feet, then it becomes a fire hazard. Because if your neighbor can build to the property line and you can build to the property line, you're essentially creating a division wall.
Right.
So it's to be protected from fire from both sides. So it's to prevent a fire in your house from spreading over the property line and vice versa, a building on the other property from spreading fire to your property. So that's why the building code says that if you're less than 3 feet, it has to be a 1-hour rated wall from both sides. And you can't have any openings in it, because if you have an opening in it, fire can come through that opening a lot faster than no opening.
What if you had a fusible link over your opening?
There's no provision in the code for that.
It would be fire rated.
No, because it would be a protected opening, but the code doesn't allow any openings. So the question becomes too with the stairway, because if you look at your existing survey, I think you have 5.3 feet there. And then you're going back to somewhere around 4 feet at the rear. So a stairway is typically 3, you need a minimum of 3 feet in width. You take, even if you did a 2x4 wall, you would still need an inch of insulation on the outside of that. So you're already at 40 some inches. So it would be very tight to fit a 3 foot wide staircase into that small opening of 4 foot wide, including the outside face of the building
Right,
and the footer projection.
right, but it would help to get it outside of the current structure.
Understood. I'm
Yeah.
just making you
Yeah,
aware.
yeah, no, I understand.
Just to clarify, we have the ability to grant a variance on the zoning code, but we cannot grant anything on the building.
That is
code.
correct. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So just to make them aware that, you know, even if it does get granted a variance, that there still might be some challenges on the building code side.
Thank you.
Could I ask one more question? So if we were to figure out a way to acquire that alley property, would that change that requirement, because that would be part of our property then?
Well, right now it's public property.
Mhm.
It belongs to everybody in that subdivision. So everybody that has a lot within that subdivision has private rights to that alley. So anybody that owns a lot in there can walk up and down that alley any day that they want, because that's their private rights to it. The municipality, because there is no road that was offered for dedication in it, or alley, then we do not have rights to accept it as a public right of way. But we also have a storm and sanitary through there, which have perhaps easements or prescriptive easements for their maintenance of it.
Well,
So
how would
to-
the people between Maybrick, or Baywood in Atlanta have built things?
Yeah, when you said that on your aerial, there's nothing, I'm looking at the GIS, there is nothing built within that right of way. And there is no separate parcels. So none of it has been vacated or deeded off to neighboring properties. So I'm looking at the GIS and there's nothing in the right of way at all. Other than the alley itself.
Yeah, there's definitely, I would.
So I don't know if that's Google Map.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's our GIS. I don't know where that came from.
I mean, you could come over and walk with me and show it to you.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on our GIS, which is on our website. And I don't see, I'm seeing Alice, because people park, they have detached garages back there. And that's from Cedar to Atlanta, from Atlanta to
It's Atlanta to Baywood.
Atlanta to Maybrick. Yeah, there's nothing. Matter of fact, 271 Atlanta, looks like their driveway comes in and then curves off onto their property similar to yours.
Yeah, and then it's from there up.
The parcel 261 is owned by Kernan. Parcel 263 is owned by Kernan. Parcel 259 is owned by Kernan. And parcel 264 is McCarlson.
Yeah, there's no separate parcels in that alley. It's all right away.
This is the GIS. It's actually showing part of that.
I'm sorry, sir, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, it's part of that. There's parcel numbers of each one of these, and they're owned by this people. That was all the GIS.
I'm gonna invite Mr. Rocker to continue. Questions that he may have, while you're looking at the GIS.
I don't have further questions. I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't mine. I wasn't the one asking.
I think it was mine, but I have,
My
no-
apologies.
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to.
Yeah, I think I interrupted.
That's what my thinking is. My apologies. Mr. Rother, do you have questions?
So I guess the, I do now, yeah, the garage, if granted the variance, with the garage, where would the garage door be? Would it be on
It's on the,
the proposed paver driveway, or would it be off the actual?
yeah, you'd pull up and swing in onto the left there, and then the neighbor would be able to pull up and swing to the right. And her. You know, because she's got that like flat area over there, so it's everybody's gonna use the thing, we'll both just kind of go like that.
Okay. No further questions.
Okay. I have no further questions, however, I do want to read the neighbor's letter into the record. If I can find it. Here we go. From Catherine Powell, originally to Rodney Sarver. Subject 1847, dear Mr. Sarver. I appreciate receiving the notice of this appeal for 296 Magnolia Place. I live at 292, immediately next door to Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, and have some concerns about this. The properties on this street are small and deeper than they are wide. Since there is so little space between our properties, this new large addition will loom over my backyard, making me feel like I'm living in a townhouse community instead of a single dwelling home. The boundaries are established, and it just makes sense for any new additions to be designed to fall within them. I appreciate you voicing my objections at this hearing. That's Catherine, Kathryn, Powell, Powell. All right. Were there any other questions from anyone in the audience? Is there anyone online? Any further questions from either of you?
No.
No.
All right, we will now enter executive session and we'll return shortly.
Thank you. What we were doing. Like the rest of it, right? I know it's gonna be. I never was on that. It's gonna be beautiful. I'm so glad. It really, I mean, for me, I'm not gonna have to put everything in perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Not too often, but.
Where is the same. Oh, yeah, yeah, well, it was also. I didn't even see that, you couldn't see that. I was right there. I thought it was, you know. Yeah, but not what we find out. Yeah, we have to try to find out what we can do. And then we can start thinking about how we work with our specialists. I mean, on our old variants, the architect had windows in the, like the new addition part. Would those have, like in the drawings, at least, would those have been permitted, like, was it? Because I think it's still was out just as far.
Once you get to the 3 foot, that's the cutoff.
Okay, so we're probably okay.
And they changed it even in the 18 code, they made it a little bit more strict.
Okay.
Because I think in the earlier codes, you might have been able to go to 2 feet. But once you even get like, I think it was 2, now it's 3, I think once you get below that, you can't have any openings in any walls.
So let's say that because it's coming down on an angle, let's say here it's 4, but down here it's 2. Can you have a window where it's 4? And not have a window where it's 2?
Yeah, as long as it is outside of that offset. And I don't know if I can you get on your phone? There's a table in there.
Yeah, right.
It's in chapter 3.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can get it online or not. If you give me a call or email me, I can email you the table.
Yeah,
It shows what it says, because it allows. Memory serves me correctly, it allows penetrations. So you can have like a air conditioning line penetrate the wall. But you can't have an opening, meaning a window or door. But you're allowed certain penetrations once you get below a certain area. But once you get below that 3 foot, I'm almost positive it's 0. 0 openings. I lost the link on my phone, Josh.
Yeah, I'm scrolling there. Problem is on your phone, it narrows it down so much. It's scrolling forever.
I gotta get that put back on here. Yeah, you can either send you a copy or a link to it. Because they made the codes free online. To look at them, but you can't print from them.
Okay.
So you can at least look at it, or I can email you a print copy of our code.
Can you tell me what table it is?
That's what he's looking for now. It's in chapter 3. There's a fire rating chapter in there for setbacks.
Cause you and I talked.
Right. I can see the table, I just don't have my code book with me. It's on the bottom left-hand table, I know that. Might be easier to run up and get the code book.
Table 302.1, parentheses 1.
302.1 parentheses 1.
Yeah.
You hear that, Steve?
Openings and walls are not allowed less than 3 feet, 25% back on the wall area at 3 feet, unlimited at 5 feet.
Yeah. So you see what I mean? Once, if you're a 5 foot setback, it's unlimited. If you go from 5 feet to 3 feet, it's 25% of the wall area can have openings. Then once you get below 3 feet, it's nothing.
Okay.
And then it should have projection or penetrations in there too, right?
Penetrations, all penetrations. Comply with section 302.4 for less than 3 feet. 302.
And it also, I think, requires your roof to be rated. When you go that close. So you have to almost rate your roof, so you can't have any ventilation on your eave. Because you can't have any openings. Which might not be a problem because the garage. The garage is the one that's gonna be closer than 3.
Yeah.
You're the back corner of your addition may. Because you're going from 5 feet to.
302.4 is membrane and deep penetration, so it allows for certain penetration with protect. So like their AC line or something like that.
Yeah, so you might be able to put what they call intumescent fire stopping in. So it's like, you know, those snakes you used to like when you were a kid and they'd grow.
Yeah.
The fire stopping that you put around the penetration. So like if you have a pipe going through a wall, you seal it with like a caulking. And it's called intumescent fire stopping, and it's like that stuff. So when it catches fire, it grows, like the snake grows, and it seals off the hole. So it's called intumescent.
Okay.
Yeah, you would be close to that corner being 3 feet. But definitely the stairwell,
Right,
you know,
right. Yeah, we're just. So we don't.
if you ever have any questions about that, just call me.
Okay.
But you gotta think about your air conditioning units too. Because they can't be closer than 7 feet to the side property. So if you have one, you'd have to move it almost centered in the back, which would be the driveway.
Right.
So now you might be looking at wall mounting it on the back of the addition above the deck. So, yeah, there's lots of things to think about. I'm sure that's where the 5-foot minimum setback came from, was from the building codes. Was there anybody signed in at all?
There was one person on there watching.
First case?
And one of theirs.
Are they still in the other room?
buildings.
I hear you. I drink coffee all the way up to when I go to bed. Doesn't keep me up.
Yeah, well, I can too, it doesn't bother me.
You know, my wife makes it after dinner. And I'll finish the pot before I go to bed.
I should have coffee after dinner too. They close early. Never fails, I think, somewhere where let's.
Yeah.
Police station.
Used to be. They moved it down, they moved the fire department, this used to actually be the fire bays.
I thought this was like a too.
No, this was the garages for the fire bays, these arches were the doors. So they used to park fire trucks in there, yeah. And the commission chambers, I think was upstairs, yeah. Yeah, but it used to be the library at first, then they changed it to the commission chambers. And then the police were downstairs. I don't know. I doubt it, because I think it was always offices upstairs. So I don't know, I was in here years ago when it was still fire department, but then, like I said, they built that public safety building down there. And that's where the fire and police are now.
Why is that moved like that?
Beverly?
Yeah.
It's light up night.
That's why there's so many people wandering.
Yeah, we have two main business districts, they call it, this main drag here, and then Beverly. So they have different celebrations where they close off the road.
Didn't seem like there was a lot of people walking.
I think it was from 6 to 8:30. 6 to 8:30, I think it was.
It's not doing the night or
Uptown?
uptown.
No,
It's during the day, right?
yeah, it's gonna be on the 10th. Yeah. In the south lot and then down this way a little bit. Yeah, too much disruption with the sidewalk project.
What's that?
Should have been done a long time ago.
Infrastructure going in, or
They're not adding anything, they're changing stuff.
Yeah.
Adding irrigation system and stuff like that, electric.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, because they had, it was, just had all different guitars. Who would things do? It was. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily, I think some. It was like, there was an off. It was like, it's five. This is. This is the cheapest one. Listen, this is the one you.
The file again, and get-
You know. I'm usually here at 7 AM, so.
He said,
Seven this morning.
take out the phosphorus stuff. I guess it's, they're 500.
You go on to-
250s. This is out of this. You can buy these 250s, certain on the internet. It's under, he's like, so we just got a $3,200 base. So it's sort of. So this was. Spring. Listed for 4 million. So I don't know what we use it together.
All right, we're back on the record for hearing 1847. We looked at this in great detail and want to lay out some modifications to your request or suggest them, and Mr. Rother will speak to that.
Yeah, so in discussion with the board and in reviewing I guess the previous variance that was granted. And looking at that plan, that variance was granted in a manner where the closest structure was 4.5 feet away from Ashley Alley. There was a 2-foot setback that was put on the deck, on the wooden deck, so there was the overhang of the wooden deck. So we would like to propose a condition or a modification to the request that the no structure on the addition, whether it's the addition or the garage, be within that 4.5 feet of Ashley Alley. And if acceptable to you, we could vote on that, or we could vote on the I guess proposal as originally submitted.
So if it was, I'm not sure where did that put us if it's 4 foot? You're saying nothing less than 4 foot off of
4.5.
4.5. What is that, the implication? Does that only impact does that mean that the garage is stepping back or everything is stepping back?
So we have a copy of the prior variance if you'd like to take a look at that.
I'm just trying to understand what that exactly means.
So right here is the 4.5 foot to the original addition, and you can see that the garage here never kind of came within that 4.5 feet. It was the overhang that encroached to that 2 foot that we modified last time. So if you maintain the 4.5 foot building structure to the alley line, That's what we were looking to.
So the garage is then gonna have to step back
Correct.
as well. So this is not as good as the original variance.
The original variance, what was coming over was that deck overhang. But the structure that was not deck, which was the garage and the addition. Right, was allowed, had a closest point of 4.5 feet. And the original variance, we also, we looked at that and we allowed that. Plus the deck overhang to come closer. And so. This has expired, if you have 1 year to work on it. Right. And so what we're saying is that same 4.5 feet, as long as you're not coming closer to the 4.5 feet. We can look at that. And if that's not acceptable, we can throw that out, we'll vote on your original request.
So I think my only, so if the new one was proposed at 18 by 26. If we were to be at 18 instead of 16 there. Do we know how far from? I guess what I'm saying is I understand kind of the idea of the 4.5 feet, and I understand stepping back here with the garage. I'm just wondering if maybe if we can get 2 more feet this way. If I'm guessing it's gonna be less than 4.5 feet, but if that is like the where it would be. Think back.
I'm sorry. If that everybody just.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we're saying is you could take your addition no closer than 4.5 feet. So where you decide at some point you're going to have to step that back because of the angle. Where you step that back at is that would be up to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be at one of the corners shown here. You have liberty to kind of fit within that up to that 4.5 foot setback line. Okay. Well, what we're suggesting.
Okay.
If you want to take a second to chat, that's fine, and then let us know.
Is that non-inclusive of the spread rate?
Mr. Sarver, if we would grant the 4.5, essentially 4.5 foot variance or setback, the footer would have to be within the 4.5 feet, correct?
No, we would take the offset of the 4.5 foot, so you can extend the footer on. But you couldn't go over the property line with a footer. But I doubt if the spread footer would have a 4.5 foot extension.
Okay. We'll vote on that.
We're here for your guidance.
All right, so thank you. So I believe we are now prepared to vote, and we are adding the condition that the new addition and or new garage must maintain at least 4.5 feet setback from Ashley Alley. Right. With that, Mr. Scowen, how do you vote?
I vote to approve the variance.
And Mr. Ruther, how do you vote?
I vote to approve as conditioned.
I also vote to approve as conditioned. So we will prepare that and with Mr. Sharver, and then that will be sent to you. With that, we are off the record and we are done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right, sorry, took so much time for your evening.
No, that's why we're here.